Hey there, welcome to PhD Weekly, episode 14. This is a weekly series where I reflect on my past week in grad school, sharing either a lesson or idea, as well as a feelings update, highlights, and stressors for the week. I'm your host, RKPhD. I am working on my PhD in quantitative and computational biosciences over at Baylor College of Medicine. So I'm just documenting my time during my PhD. This week, really focusing on the NSF GRFP. This is the Graduate Research Fellowship Program that I recently applied to. I want to share with you what this GRFP is about. What is this fellowship? How does it work? And then my overall thoughts and experience after applying to the actual fellowship itself for my grad program. But first, feelings update. Overall, I say I'm feeling accomplished. I applied for both the GRFP, the Graduate Fellowship, as well as the PD Soros Fellowship. PD Soros is more leadership and service focused, whereas GRFP is very much more so research and some more technically focused. Not too far into the weeds, but still more technically focused than the PD Soros Fellowship. So I just finished working this last month and a half towards applying to these two different fellowships. So overall, just a giant sigh of relief. Finally got that done. And so want to go ahead and now share that with you guys. Now, what exactly is the NSF GRFP? So National Science Foundation's Graduate Research Fellowship Program. It was established to recruit and support individuals who demonstrate the potential to make a significant contribution in STEM and STEM education. The overall program overview is it provides 3 years of funding over a 5-year period. So from when you win the award, you have that 5-year window to use 3 years worth of funding. You get $37,000 per year in terms of covering your tuition stipend. Plus, you get an extra $16,000 per year to the institute to cover your classes, any coursework you want to take. The fellowship also covers that, which normally, at least at Baylor, the institution covers that, but that part of the fellowship just helps the institute. Then now they recently changed it this past year where the application limit is just one attempt and that's it. The application limit is you can only apply once as a graduate student, and then you can also apply as a undergrad student as well. So you get one chance during your undergrad degree, and then you can reapply again during your graduate degree. But if you are a graduate student applying for the first time, you only get one attempt. It's one and done. Something that was a bit new this year, they actually posted the GRFP solicitation. This is where the government posts this giant document with all the requirements and all the criteria for like who is this fellowship for? What is the government looking for in terms of applicants when you do apply for this fellowship? So the program solicitation for the GRFP, they posted it September 26, 2025. Mind you, this is with a deadline of around November 10th. The reason I say around November 10th, it depends on the specific program you plan on applying to within the GRFP. So I'm applying via the life sciences, but you can apply towards more like the engineering, computer science, or information systems, and other programs like that. But it's generally that entire week that you have to then have to meet that deadline. And this is definitely very new. They usually give way more than a month and change to apply to the fellowship. So it's definitely a big new change because you usually have the summer from about June, July to apply over up until the beginning of November. So now with the application structure, there's really two components. You have the personal statement, which is still 3 pages max. And this is the personal, relevant background, and future goals. Now, the required sections within this personal statement are the intellectual merit, which covers your academic achievements, your research experience, what are the problem solving abilities and skill sets that you've shown throughout your research experience. Then the second section in this personal statement is the broader impacts. So your research, how are you doing community outreach and mentoring? How are you approaching planning to increase diversity in STEM or access for students and for people in your community to be able to learn more about STEM? And then what teaching and science communication experience do you have? again, thinking about broader impacts and how is your research or how are you as the individual going about impacting your own community, local, national, what have you. And so that's the first big one, the personal statement. 3 pages max, all about your personal experiences, future goals, and relevant background. Then the second big chunk of the GRFP is the research statement. This is the graduate research plan. So there's again 2 sections. And this year, I believe they changed it to also just be intellectual merit and broader impacts. I believe past years was perhaps slightly different. Again, this year has been very different from previous years in terms of the approach to the GRFP and some of the key rules. For example, this year was the first year where they actually removed second years from being able to apply to the fellowship. So this is the first year where only the first year students in graduate school are actually able to apply to this fellowship. Bit of a big deal, especially at least for me, where I'm joining a PhD program without having selected a lab yet, without having selected a mentor. So that definitely shook things up for me because now I'm coming into taking these courses and working on my research rotations, but also kind of having to figure out finding a mentor that can just vouch for me, even though I've only met them a month or two. So definitely a bit different. Usually you can apply in the second year of your PhD program when you've already picked a lab, when you've already finished most of your classes, when you've already finished your lab rotations and you have a little more experience and you have a little more handle on the ropes. So that's why usually second year students tend to apply. Also, it complements your qualifying examinations where you've already taken additional coursework on how to write a grant, how to make a proposal, and how to really think through like selling your research. And so I haven't gone through those courses yet. Again, I'm just a first year, my first few months of my PhD, of my graduate program. So definitely a bit different. I think if I were applying to this during my second year, of course, I would have been a little more prepared for it. Thankfully, I applied for this fellowship last year during my undergrad slash postbac time. So I was able to then apply a second time, with this second time being my first time within my PhD, within my graduate timeline. So I had a little more experience, a little more exposure to actually applying. Looking back, I'm actually really glad that I applied previously because I don't know if I would have been able to really apply for this fellowship with 5, 6 weeks of time. Now, in terms of the research statement, again, we have intellectual merit. What are your research objectives? What are your hypotheses, methods, approaches to the research that you're proposing? And like, why is this innovative? Why is this significant to the specific field that you're studying? Also, broader impacts. What are the societal benefits, the educational outreach plans that you can contribute with the research you're proposing? And how are you going to share and disseminate your knowledge with the world? How are you going to go about sharing this new knowledge with the rest of the community? So, really having clear ideas and understanding of how you want to propose this, being very clearly structured in your writing, I think definitely, of course, helps because clarity in your thinking means clarity in your writing. And so those are really the 2 key chunks. Additionally, you still need 3 letters of recommendation. And instead of taking a CV, you just go ahead and fill out like their little text box of different achievements and fellowships and papers and whatnot, awards that you've won throughout your research experience as well. You don't just attach your CV, you have to go ahead and either copy paste, type it out, format it so it fits in like this little box that they have. And I went ahead and added little dashes to make it cleaner for the reviewers. We'll see what the feedback is on that. I don't know if that's the appropriate format. I just felt like if I were a reviewer, I would definitely prefer some bullet points just to like be able to distinguish between the different awards and research papers and such. My overall experience, I think particularly for this year, because I had 5 weeks, I definitely felt a bit rushed. Fortunately, in the first research rotation I did at my PhD program, I felt really solid. I got really into the literature and got really familiar with the research. And so then when the solicitation came out and I decided, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and apply, I had already had developed a month or two's worth of background to then be able to sort of figure my way out into applying for the fellowship. So that definitely helped. Plus, I already knew the 3 people I wanted to reach out for my letter of recommendations. So that was solid. then it was really just still the research statement part for me that was the toughest, where I was just trying to get a stronger understanding of what is currently in the literature and what is the new thing that I'm proposing and the methods and approaches that I want to propose and why that would work versus other approaches and other methods. Additionally, a big piece of advice when you're applying to fellowships, I would say give yourself at least a 5 hour grace period, ideally 12 to 24 hours before the fellowship deadline. You're submitting all your forms and whatnot. But if you're doing the same day, because I know sometimes that last day you're trying to make small little edits here and there, I would definitely recommend don't do it an hour before. That's not enough time. Give yourself at least a few hours before the deadline, ideally 5 to 12 hours before the actual deadline. Why is that? When you go to submit, depending on the formatting, depending on the text, for me, I followed the rules of the formatting in the solicitation. But then when I went to go ahead and submit, not sure why, it still had issues with the lining of my document. Even though it was single spaced, which is allowed according to the solicitation, the actual website, when I went to go upload, it checks it for you and it told me it does not meet our requirements. Please reformat before you can actually submit. And so I spent a solid hour, maybe 2 hours, just trying to read through, find areas where I can either cut or like make the text bigger. But then that went over the page limit. So then I had to cut some more and find ways to really condense it down even further and further. I mean, it's a good exercise to always be asking, what is the weakest sentence in my essay? Do I even need this? But when it's 5 hours before the deadline, it was still very nerve wracking and just trying to troubleshoot before I hit the deadline. You want to make sure you submit before the deadline time because then you put in all this work and then they're going to immediately reject you once they come to review your application. For this past week, the highlight and the stressor for really this last few weeks have really just been applying for the fellowship and then applying to the fellowship. It's been very stressful in terms of staying consistent with thinking through my writing, then like coming up with cohesive narrative of what I want to propose and then writing it all out. But then being able to look back once I'm done writing it and now that I've submitted it, it's such a load off my chest, a load off my shoulders in terms of we did it, we submitted it. If it gets in or doesn't get in or accepted or whatever, that's fine. At least I've learned how to improve my skill sets in terms of applying to different fellowships. So even next year, my second year, I'm more prepared for whatever future fellowships lie ahead. So definitely a big sigh of relief, feeling good, and hopefully everything turns out good and we get one of these fellowships and that'll help support the research that I'm doing. So there you have it, a big picture overview of what is the GRFP, what does that look like, and my overall experience applying to the NSF GRFP for the 2026 academic year. So it's currently 2025, but you apply and then next year you hear back whether or not you got it. So 2026 GRFP experience. Let me know if you're applying to a fellowship, what fellowships you are applying to. Comment down below. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care.